Hey, what's up guys? My name is Azoh and welcome back to Zed School. Again, today we will be talking about Zed's runes and masteries. Again. So I've been getting more questions than ever about Zed's current runes and masteries in patch 6.19, and I guess people are wondering if my old videos are still up to date, in my older Zed School videos about runes and masteries. So here we go, here are my 6.19 Zed runes and masteries. So before I jump into my current rune pages, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a difference in some rune pages that pro players run. So if you look at Korean pros, many of them run AD marks and AD quints. Now, marks and quints are the big difference in many Zed players' runes. So you'll usually see them running a specific set of marks and quints and carry that over between the rune pages. So there's no correct way to have this. My setup is AD marks or armor penetration marks and AD quints, and I like this because without any AD, so with 3 AD quints, you get to consistently last hit ranged minions under turret in early levels. If you don't run any AD, you can't do that. The armor penetration is really nice because I like the push for a very high flat armor penetration. That's with Youmuu's and Dirk, or Youmuu's Ma Dirk, or Youmuu's Ma Duskblade Dirk. So you're getting a ridiculous amount of flat armor penetration. So that was my first build with the new Season 6. I just rushed a ridiculous amount of armor penetration, and it works really well. So I think this balanced setup works really well, but I know that Faker runs full AD, and I've seen some Korean pros run full armor penetration, or mixes between. You can really, whatever you like, just find something you like, get used to its strengths, and stick to that. So other than that, this is the rune page I've been using for about 3 years now. This is the rune page that kind of got me into Zed and got me used to playing him. This is armor penetration marks, obviously, HP per level seals, and MR glyphs, and of course, as I said, AD quints. This is not the optimal Zed page. This is the one I like the most. This is not the one you should be using. This is the one I use. You don't have to use this one. This one works really well against very strong AP, or very strong early game AP, if you can manage not having much HP at the start, because as you might be aware, HP per level seals catch up to HP seals around level 6, so that means until then you're going to be kind of behind on the HP curve in a way. So if you can manage that, it works pretty well. It helps a bit in late game, but it's not necessary. HP per level seals is what most professional Zed players run, because it works really, really well for after level 6. This should be the most optimal rune page right now. This is also versus AP. So this is, of course, these are my offensive runes. It's armor penetration marks again, AD quints again, and then HP per level seals again, and then 3 MR glyphs, and then you have 6 scaling CDR glyphs. And that means you'll have, at level 18, you'll have 10% CDR, and with Youmuu's and Black Cleaver, which pretty much every single Zed build includes, and if it doesn't, it's a build I wouldn't want to do. There are builds that don't use Youmuu's and Black Cleaver. I just think every build should use Youmuu's and Black Cleaver because they're so freaking good. Not necessary, it's just personal preference. So the slight magic resistance here, you can switch this to MR per level if you're not laning against an AP champion. But then you have literally no defensive summoner, or no defensive runes if you're playing against an AD mid, and we'll get to the armor rune page in a bit. So this rune page means that you will get to 40% CDR at level 18, which is really good. I've talked about it before. 40% CDR is very good, but there's a diminishing return in terms of energy. So even if you have a ton of CDR, you are still limited by your energy. And do not tell me you're running energy runes. None of that, okay? Not in this house. No energy runes. No, they can sleep outside, okay? Not in my house. Right, so The MR helps a little bit against AP early, but we're still talking about, what, 4 MR? You're not going to notice a gigantic difference, but it adds up. Above all, you don't need any more CDRs, you had 3 slots over, so it's kind of whatever. But this is the most standard page I think most professional Dud players run, with slight variations. Of course, this is not set in stone. The offensive ones is your choice. So let's talk about the... this is the one I run versus AD. So, of course, still armor penetration marks, AD quints, and then I have 5 armor seals and 4 HP seals. You can switch this around if you want 5 HP, 4 armor, or more or less in one direction. There's really not a specific set amount. I just like having it. Having the split between these. This is not what I run versus if they have heavy AP overall. I think if you're laning against an AD but they have a heavy AP overall, you can run. You can either run this one, or rather, you can run this one with a modification where you run MR per level. You can run a modification of this one where you have these 3 be MR per level. I think that's probably the best. If you have a modification of this rune page where you have 3 MR per level instead, and you're laning against an AD, then you don't get any wasted resources early game because you don't get MR that you won't be using, and you'll get MR late game that you have value for. You'll have the HP runes you'll have value for. So this kind of works out for that. But we're talking about very specific scenarios, and there's really nothing wrong with if you're laning against an AD not having MR, because you can compensate for not having MR by buying Maw. I hope you're following me. I know I can either ramble on or sound very drony, but I hope you're still following me, alright? So this is the standard rune page versus AD. So we have the split between armor and HP, as I said, and then you have, again, you have 10% CDR at 18, but this time you have 6 flat CDR, which means you get to start the game with 5% CDR, and then as the game goes on, you get you get 5% CDR to level 18. So you start with 5% CDR. We're not talking about a huge amount of help, but it adds up. It adds up a lot more than you'd think. So that should be it for runes, honestly. As I said, if you want to craft your own rune page, find the thing you're most comfortable with, or just remember that all of it works. I would recommend... This is the setup I would recommend, but honestly, I've seen professional players do all kinds of weird stuff. I've seen some players even run HP regeneration quints and all crazy kinds of stuff like that. The only thing I'd say is don't copy Faker, because he is so good and he does so many weird things that I have no idea. He used to run CDR per level on Azoh. That's what I usually use as an example. Like, yeah, Faker does it, but he's also much better than everyone. So he can manage that. I'm not sure we can. We're just mortals. So let's move over to Masteries, actually. So not much has changed from when I talked about this almost 9 months ago. We're still running Savagery. We're still running 12-18, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about Stormrated Surge. But let's go over my standard page first. So I'm running Savagery. There is an argument for Wanderer, but honestly, it's just very nice to have. It's just very nice to have that extra damage when last hitting, especially as a melee champion. If you prefer roaming a little bit more, Wanderer is fine. You can manage it, especially if you're running full AD. I think there's almost an argument for Wanderer, but I don't know. I think Savagery is still better in that case. On tier 2, I have seen people talking about Secret Stash, which, yeah, I guess, like, if you run... Excuse me. I suppose if you run Refillable Flask, it is a little bit more value, I guess. But it's just not comparable to 2% increased damage. The 2% is almost constant. Except for late game team fights, it's just way too good not to have. So, if you prefer the defensive choice with Potion, that's fine. I still think Assassin is a little bit better. There's no choice between Merciless and Meditation, and if there is, I question your other life choices. Bandit and Dangerous Game, same thing. Dangerous Game is by far the better one. Now, Intelligence and Precision. I've seen a lot of arguments for Intelligence, and I've seen a lot of people wanting to make Intelligence work. But as I was saying before, with Zed, with energy, there is a diminishing return. So you're always limited by energy, no matter how much CDR you have. If you have 45% CDR, it's really good for your ultimate and for your W. But remember, if you're like me, you run out of energy in lane with no CDR. How quickly are you going to run out of energy with 40% CDR if you don't properly manage it? So what's good is that you can very often use your W, and your W is obviously the catalyst for your burst, and the catalyst kind of what's it called, not nexus, but like the way you burst through it, you move through it, you initiate through it, you engage through it. Initiate and engage, the same thing, right? It's a core concept, right? For your, when everything starts, how everything ends. That sounded way too much poetic. Anyway, so it's very good, but the problem is with most rune pages, how you get to 40% is that with most rune pages you wait to level 18, because somehow you want to get to level 18 with all these rune pages. They end at all the CDR rune pages, they end at level 18 with 10% CDR, which means before level like 12, you're not getting any value you're getting to the 5% value from intelligence, which is fine, but you're not getting to that 45%, which you kind of want, I guess, compared to a consistent precision advantage. I've talked about precision before. I'm not going to give you the maths because I'm not sure if anyone's so interested. If you're interested in the maths, they're in the old video. I'll link it there. But it's honestly your choice. I can definitely understand intelligence, and if you like it, it works. It's just not my preference, because it takes too long to get value, and I think Zed manages really well at 25% CDR. 30% is fine, 40% is fine, 45% is also fine. Just as long as you can manage it, it's always good, because having your ultimate up quicker, at 40% you can almost ult twice in a fight, which is ridiculously good, but it's still the case that even really good Zed players run out of energy, and if you're out of energy, you are completely helpless. So obviously Thunderlord's Decree, I just don't know what to say. It's just too good. It's just so ridiculously good on Zed. You get Thunderlord's Decree pretty much on every single poke you do with a W. If you hit a double Q and an E, it's a Thunderlord's. If you hit a Q and an E and an auto-attack, it's a Thunderlord's. If you hit a Q and an E and an ultimate and then attack, then you get Thunderlord's, which adds onto your ultimate. It's really, really good. So Storm Raider Surge, we'll talk about that in a second. Now, Sorcery. Sorcery is very optimal for the builds I run. If you run crit builds, Fury is probably better. I haven't done the maths on this, but I would assume Fury is better. Fury helps a little bit with the last hitting in the early game, so I'm not going to say that Sorcery is better, but it fits the playstyle I use, and I don't need Fury for early game last hitting, so I go with Sorcery. As for Double-Edged Sword versus Feast versus Exposed Weaknesses, now they over-nerfed Feast, I think. 20 HP with a 30-second cooldown for killing a unit, so let's say every like 35-40 seconds you get 20 HP. I mean, it's okay. It's definitely okay, but compared to a consistent 3% additional damage, I really don't think there's an option here. Except Exposed Weaknesses. So I know that Faker used to run Exposed Weaknesses back in the day when these masteries weren't the thing, with the old Exposed Weaknesses that was in the offense tree. Exposed Weaknesses works fine, since you usually attack the key target, or you have a lot of AoE with your Qs, with your E, with Tiamat. So yeah, your team gets a lot of bonus damage from exposed weaknesses. But you're an assassin. In many situations you're going to be making picks on your own, or diving the backline on your own. Exposed weaknesses works fine, especially if you have that kind of utility playstyle, and I'm honestly curious if exposed weaknesses isn't better for me, because I like teamfighting with my team as Zed. So, but even then, I still think Double-Edged Sword is better, because you need that extra damage. You need to consistently hammer down the key target, and the extra damage helps a lot. The taking additional damage really is not as irrelevant. It's annoying, but considering you usually run like 3 half-tank items with Black Cleaver, with Maw, with Sterix, with Titanic, you know, you have a lot of kind of tanky items, and you have a lot of lifesteal and such, so I think the 1.5 additional damage taken isn't as relevant as the 3 additional damage dealt. Vampirism versus Natural Talent. I don't think there's much of an argument here. You know, having 10 extra AD at level 18, that's really good. That's an extra longsword. But it's level 18, and at level 18 the extra longsword does not really matter that much. Of course, the AP is completely irrelevant, and you know, sure, you get, I guess you do get 2.5 AD at level 1, which is pretty cool, but I mean, yeah, if you're running full AD on your marks and full AD in your marks and quints, maybe, but I still think Vampirism is just optimal. The lifesteal and the spell vamp obviously is really good for kind of just recuperating a little bit in lane, and the lifesteal obviously helps with the same thing. And especially if you have builds that don't have this, it just helps you to not have to recall all the time. And you know, it's just very consistent, very good. Now this is something I've been laying awake at night thinking about: Oppressor versus Bounty Hunter. So Oppressor is what every single pro runs. I haven't seen a single professional player run Bounty Hunter over Oppressor. And that's because it is so hard to consistently, in games, consistently get a kill on unique champions until you have 3%, which would be better than the Oppressor then. It is so hard to get that. And you don't get any bonus from this in early game. And sure, you could argue that 2.5% in early game is not that much, but it adds up. Above all, in every single fight you're going to get Oppressor. If not from your own WE, which is pretty much how you do every single engage, like you might do WQE and not get the not have the Q get the damage increase. But you're still talking about 1 Q with a little bit less damage. Well, when you're fighting team fights, this is going to be every fight. Every time you have help from another champion, every champion has a slow these days. Every single champion in the game has a friggin' slow. Or a stun, or a root, or a taunt. You know, every single champion, right? So, you know, you can't take Bounty Hunter if you're really confident in yourself. Like, if you do get 3%, you have consistently all the time 3% increased damage, which is really good, but it's really hard to get there. So in my opinion, it's not as good, because it's not as consistent. So let's talk about Storm Raiders Surge, because this is also something I'm getting a lot of questions about. You can simply do this. You keep everything else and just go Storm Raiders. It works fine. It makes your late game really good, because you can consistently stick to target without them running away, or when you kill a target, you can very easily get away with the movement speed. But in early game, it's really not very good on Zed, in my opinion. Compared to the Thunderlords, which is consistently an increase of damage, it's just so good, especially since it adds on top of your ultimate. I just can't... I would have a really hard time playing without Thunderous Decree, but I can definitely accept or concede that Storm Raiders Surge is a viable mastery. And if you like that kind of slippery playstyle, which I think Zed has enough of, but if you like that, you do you. It's a decent keystone, and I won't argue against it, because I can definitely see why you'd like it. Like add a Bork on top of that, or mobility boot or Swifty boots, and then Black Cleaver speed up, and then maybe QS or Scimitar speed up. You're Sonic. You're just running away so quickly, or sticking to a target so quickly. You don't even need to flash. If Ezreal jumps, if you deal enough damage with Bork on Ezreal with an E or on anything, you slow him, and then you just super Sonic to him. You don't have to waste flash. You stick so consistently, and if you had a Bork on top of that, nothing can get away from you. So yeah, it's really, really good late game for sticking to targets, but I still think Thunderlords is better for the consistent damage and the way it helps you snowball. But if you prefer Storm Riders, it works fine. In either case, that's going to be it for my Runes and Masteries. Once again, this is probably the optimal rune page you want to run. If you like Armor Penetration Marks and 80 Quint, otherwise switch that to what you like. But HP per level seals is pretty much what everyone runs. If you want to run against AD, you can add that into your AD page as well. You don't have to run flat AD. I just usually like, when you're playing against AD, usually they are very, very oppressive early game. But it's your choice. I think definitely HP per level might be better. And in these rune pages, it definitely is. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. I've been having... it was a lot of fun hosting you guys. I just want to say that I might not be able to upload as many videos because I've been having pains in my, what's it called, forearm. And it's probably because of static movement. Like when I use it on my keyboard, it's very static. So it's kind of freaking me out a little bit because, you know, keep hearing about pro players having problems with their wrists and stuff, and it's just terrifying. But it's okay. I'm gonna do some physical therapy for it, maybe. Probably not. But I'm taking anti-inflammation pills, so it should be fine. In either case, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I cleared up the confusion about Zed's Runes and Masteries. If you enjoyed, comment, like, subscribe, favorite, share, and all that lovely stuff that you're supposed to be saying at the end of the video that I never do, but I still love you guys anyway, so upload it or download it, whatever you like. In any case, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.